The Fallen Garden. Trivium City, a saucer of warm glow over a dark landscape, returned to Izaiah's view on his left, nestled below in the distance between mountain peaks. Above it, the sky's once deep shade of maroon had become purple, gradually fading into the darkness of night. 99% of Trivium's surface was an endless, deep-pitted mountain range, with jagged peaks looking like standing spikes. There was little room for civilization, yet somehow, Trivium City was erected, the result of thousands of years of planning, cooperation, and action between the worlds of Unearth. Tonight, however, as though a dose of literal symbolism alluding to the spreading hysteria and xenophobia within, the once vibrant city seemed dull, with only a small amount of its former sheen. Izaiah's current trek into the mountains was his third stop of his tour since leaving Alex and Bennett at La Rose Noire.
And I'm exhausted. I wish I could have brought them along. But mortals can't enter Eros or Highwind. Their atoms are still too low a frequency. Too bad, too. I bet Alex would have gotten a kick out of seeing all this. I doubt Bennett would have cared.
The first stop on the tour was Eros, the world of wrath. No surprise, the old Medolian couldn't make it past the 9th gate, told he would have to return at a later date, as Lucifer of Vale was not seeing visitors, and the Allos conclave had adjourned for the month. His following trip to Highwind was similar in almost every way. Met with the coldest of receptions.
A staple of celestial hospitality for millennia.
He was made to wait for a whole day before being allowed to say his piece before the angels. After telling the Magnus Council of Joseph's rumored goal, to find these brothers of Gehenna, he was summarily dismissed. His ears were still ringing, and his body still felt cold and restricted. All side effects of his recent time spent in Highwind. The old Medolian lamented, his thoughts lingering on how Gabriel and his council had ostensibly responded the same as Lucifer's. Order still on, neither kingdom allowed to extract. Medolians must do so. Both humans must be present at time of arrest. Best wishes, XOXO. The only opinion everyone in Unearth seemed to share in common was a mistrust of the Medolians. Lately, Izaiah couldn't even question a witness to an Eve offense without being accused of partisanship on all sides. Though he had to admit he had been having doubts about his team of sentries and their impartiality lately.
Meaning this week, and the last couple of decades. Just a gut feeling for now. Though my gut is usually right.
Since the gathering of the Medolians, Izaiah had kept tabs on the sentries working the Joseph mandate. Everyone's Eve signatures were exactly where they were supposed to be, except for one. His second in command, Mara, who hadn't revealed herself in 2 days. Izaiah wasn't surprised, or jumping to any conclusions, but dropping off the grid at such a crucial moment was more than suspicious.
She knows better.
After his dismissal from both majority party kingdoms, Izaiah hightailed it to Trivium City. He regretted having to do so, but needed help solving this crisis. If anyone would be able to figure out who was helping Joseph, it would be the seeress, Ileana. He shifted to the North Ebb Rings, and hoofed it into the North Hills, out of the city and up into a section of the Pillamine mountain range known as the Hyperion. As he climbed the mountain path, now more than 60 miles from the city, Izaiah considered what he might say to her when he arrived. He hadn't brought any gifts, like she liked.
That's a my bad, as they say.
Sweet, buttery breads and candies were her favorite. He also smelled awful, which was just rude to inflict on another in such close quarters.
Nothing my powers can do about that. Oof. Sorry, Ileana.
Part of him was nervous. Though he had already been to see her, more than once in fact, while working the Joseph mandate, she'd been reluctant to help each time.
Scolded me pretty good. Rightfully so.
Reliving the past and seeing glimpses of possible futures was a gift too powerful to be wielded as a tool. Izaiah knew it as well as Ileana, and respected her and her mutation enough to only ask for help in extreme circumstances.
Gotta respect your peers. She's a Madolian after all.
Presently, he pulled his gaze from the glow of the city far below and continued up the treacherous slope into shadow. Even with his cane for support and a steady stream of mallows pumping through him, Izaiah's joints ached, especially his knees. After more than 2 hours on the rough path, avoiding protrusions like 8-foot spikes from the slope, he was having a hard time finding something worth laughing at. Every possible sound in the dim gray canyon made him halt and take a panicked glance around. Luckily, so far it seemed no one was following him. Making it to the crest of the path, Izaiah came upon a triangle of darkness on his right, peering deeper into a cleft in the mountain. Stepping around a bulbous rock, he found an opening filled with light and ducked through, pushing aside stiff, dead vines, cold to the touch, which broke apart like old campfire cinders as he passed. Soon he entered a wide, gray-themed scene, brushing dirt and ash off his coat, coughing and spitting onto a broken stone walkway. A field of fossilized pillars sat before him, leaning, standing, or broken, across nearly 200 acres, in the once thriving unearthed garden, Yil. The garden was invisibly set in a low inlet valley between mountain peaks. Slanted, flat-faced rock walls encroached on all sides, holding in the damp air filled with stagnant scents. Standing pillars, like obsidian redwood trunks stripped of their branches, reached to the sky, where the moon shone through a canopy net of ash-tinted vines. Below, the wild garden spilled out of racked stone structures, like serpents breaking free of their cages. Once, the plants had been astounding, always thriving and changing, back before Lucifer had cast himself from Highwin, and the garden he'd tended for thousands of years was rendered still. There were only a few who remembered the garden existed, and Izaiah knew them all. In addition, Eve signatures were cut off from the outside world once inside, making Yield the perfect place to hide someone too important to be found.
So, why do I feel like something is misbegotten around here?
Moving up the stone walk, Izaiah sensed a suspicious amount of nothing.
Where are Luna and Amrath? Those big lugs should have greeted me by now.
Scratching his head through his gray knitted cap, he laid eyes on a knoll up ahead. 4 pillars stood on the corners of a square floor and roof. Izaiah hurried to the structure, hoping the high ground would let him see the garden better.
Maybe spot those celestials, wherever they're hiding.
Abound in recessed chunks, particularly in the roof. The structure would have crumbled to pieces in a rainstorm, if one ever came to Trivium. A few feet shy of the hill, Izaiah's enormous ears picked up a faint whooshing sound. He froze, trying to remember why it gave him panic. Then it came back to him.
Oh, right. Darn.
With a yelp, he flung himself forward, just as a monstrous object impacted behind him. Dust blasted out, and Izaiah was sent flailing into a fallen pillar, spine first, upside down. He coughed, trying to wave away the dust and the ringing in his ears, as a hulking celestial stood a few feet away and pulled their spear from the ground.
Found Luna? So where's Amrath?
Before Izaiah could flip right side up, the shape lunged at him, bellowing, "Be gone!" Izaiah raised his cane in the nick of time, able to halt a symmetric, chiseled fist 8 inches across, trying to pummel him. The creature's hand was made of something akin to a powder blue violan gemstone.
The fist of a creature many on Earth would dub an angel. So, like I said, pretty different.
The emerald bubble Izaiah generated was sloppy, and a minimal band-aid defense against the Celestial's attack. Grimacing from the strain, he flung his cane to the sky, launching the enormous shadow away. 40 feet up, Luna, majestic and terrifying, roared with the might of a dozen grizzlies and opened their full wingspan, stopping mid-air.
I think there's been a misunderstanding,
Izaiah shouted desperately, rolling up his sleeves. His words were drowned out by a battle cry from the Celestial breaking into the moonlight. "Medolian!" Luna launched like a streaking eagle, brandishing their spear.
Wow, they sound upset. I mean really upset.
Celestial wings in action were either a glorious wonder or a source of pure horror to behold. Izaiah was straddling at the moment. "It was your doing," Luna shouted, their squared-off features and perfect proportions gleaming with reflected moonlight. Izaiah gripped his cane, forced Malos to the surface, and narrowly blocked the celestial spear, sending it to the side like a repelling magnet. The spear tip shot back like a viper, but was unable to pierce the Medolian. Izaiah pleaded,
Luna, it's me. Don't you recognize me? It's Izaiah.
The spear was set aside and replaced by fists hammering at Izaiah like boulders. After a handful of blows, the Medolian knew he couldn't last long like this. Drawing his cane like a baseball bat, he swung for left field, striking the Celestial's fist, blasting them across the floor, as well as himself backward into a mess of bushes.
Oh, great.
Luna and their wings were cast through pillars and raised concrete beds. The dead bushes, flowers, and vines broke apart like ash. Everything in their path was crushed before Luna came to a stop, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Izaiah climbed out of the mess, spitting and picking twigs out of his ass, when he spotted the shadow of the 9-foot celestial rising in the murk. They roared and spread their wings, draping him and the hill in shadow. "The Medolian will die," Luna shouted.
You're starting to scare me. Now tell me what's going on,
Izaiah demanded.
Where is Eliana and Amrath?
At the mention of the name, Luna gave another roar and launched into the air, turning down like a missile ready to plummet to Earth.
I've about had it up to here with this nonsense.
Izaiah closed his eyes, ignoring the threat, and concentrated on stirring the Eve within himself, generating a supply of Malos. Time slowed in his mind, calm washed over him, and the neutral energy ignited. A thunderous pop from the tip of his cane made Izaiah think for a second Luna had landed on him, striking him dead. He screamed, opened one eye, and found the Celestial was suspended in midair, inside a perfect spectrum sphere, rippling, strong, made of equal parts of all shades of the eve. Luna's vicious attacks against the translucent orb, as well as their protests, were reduced to subwoofer booms. A brilliant blue glow radiated from within their crystalline body with each strike.
Phew! That was a little close.
Huh? What's that? I can't hear you. Izaiah put a hand behind his huge ear, sitting on a flat chunk of stone to catch his breath. I can see that you're upset, and I want you to know I don't take that lightly. I don't. I also want to know the answer to my question. For the last time, where is Ileana? Luna shouted something back, but Izaiah couldn't make any of it out. Okay, fine. I'll let you down, but you have to promise to be civil. High Celestials are the most civil of all, right? Can you do that? Luna fought all the harder. That's not gonna work for me. Why don't you chill here for a bit while I go look around? Izaiah turned about face and started away. The thumping soon stopped, and Luna calmed. He smiled. Is that a yes? The trapped Celestial nodded, clenching their hairless brow. Izaiah released the bubble, letting them stand and regain their dignity, casting a towering shadow over the slight Medolian. Luna kept their promise not to resume the attack, shouldering their spear, crossing their arms, and waiting to hear what he had to say. You keep saying Medolian, but I'm the only one who knows about this place. So tell me what you mean by... Lies, interrupted Luna, remaining placid. Then tell me, Izaiah said. Luna huffed. The old Medolian speaks that like the old Medolian doesn't know. It was one of their kin who attacked Ileana. Attacked us. Killed Amrath while I took the Cirrus to safety. If the old Medolian wishes to finish the job and kill Luna, they should hurry and do so. You say Amrath is dead? That can't be. Where? How? Izaiah had so many darn questions, and yet seemed to be running on borrowed time. Luna stayed silent and still. Show me, Izaiah shouted, trying for a spark of intimidation. The Celestial was unmoved. I am under orders to only trust Izaiah, Warden Sentry of the Medolians. Only that one may see the message.
You've got to be kidding me.
That's who I am, for Pete's sake. You saying you don't recognize me? I'm the one who got you this gig, remember? I'm not sure how I should feel about that. Luna shook their head. The old Medolian should say so first next time. Your kind look alike to us. Like humans. They turned and walked away, leading Izaiah, too frustrated to care, up a path to a rising slope. I will now trust the old Medolian, Luna said. So glad to hear it. Just tell me where she is, Izaiah said, trying to keep up with the creature's strides. I don't know. I only know she's far from here, Luna replied. At least, I hope. She ordered me to remain and wait for Izaiah to make sure that one received the message. What's the message? What did she see? Did this have anything to do with Joseph? Izaiah halted Luna, who stared back with blank gemstone eyes. Since they had no real irises, only indentations in rock, Celestials never appeared to be truly looking at an individual, only through them. You know, Joseph? Runaway demon? He tried to jog their memory. The reason the kingdoms are on lockdown? Ringing any bells? Izaiah received only blank stares. For being the bodyguard of a fortune teller, you'd think you'd know a little more about unearthed affairs. Luna resumed their original path. The message is this way. Follow. Can't argue with that. They showed Izaiah to a section of the garden recently torn asunder. Columns were felled, the majority of plants reduced to dross, and chunks of earth were ripped from the ground. Luna pushed off their wings, gliding and landing near some fallen pillars, where Izaiah spotted chunks of a glowing, blue, broken humanoid, and sensed a faint rapture signature. Oh no. Their torso was mostly together, leaning against a column, missing its left arm and wing. Amrath's insides were exposed, revealing rounded cubes of tough, translucent, glowing tissue, packed into a hard, outer shell of sky blue material. Even slaughtered and mangled, the creatures of the essence of creation did not bleed. All the same, Amrath's Eve was leaving their body. Who could have done something like this? Bladed weapon, Luna said, as though answering Izaiah's thoughts. They nudged their fallen comrade. Amrath, awaken. The injured Celestial's eyes opened, and they answered weakly. Luna, friend. Amrath then turned to Izaiah, expressionless. Izaiah, Medolian, welcome. Well, where were you a few minutes ago? Izaiah said with a pain-filled chuckle, taking Amrath's remaining hand and placing his gloved palm on top. I'm sorry, old friend. Who did this to you? Amrath shared a glance with Luna before answering. Medolian, woman. Izaiah shook his head. That can't be true. There must be more you're not telling me. It couldn't be Mara, could it? Luna slammed their fist into the ground. It is true. Malos did this. What did she look like? Izaiah asked. Woman. Wielded a blade, Amrath said. Luna nodded in agreement. Thanks, you two. That narrows it down. Of course, only one person like that has been keeping their Eve under wraps lately. Darn it, Mara. Now? The Medolian can fix Amrath. The warden's sentry, Luna said, with a tinge of hope in their broad celestial voice. Izaiah shook his head. No, they're in too bad of shape. This time, none of us can fix this. I'm sorry. Amrath nodded. Though their face was blank, Izaiah could sense they understood. Death has found the deathless, Amrath said. My rapture will join Highwind, and my soul will enter what lies above. Do not grieve. Luna stood over them like an impartial statue, as Amrath closed their eyes. Though Celestials rarely showed signs of emotion, Izaiah could sense something breaking inside them. After all, the duo had guarded the garden and Ileana for more than 3,000 years. The only thing to do now was let Amrath's eve fade peacefully, which could take days, maybe even months. In Highwind tradition, Luna would be by their side the whole time.
Just goes to show you we're all temporary. Death finds us all, even angels.
After a moment of silence, Izaiah turned to Luna. Please, show me the message Ileana left for me. They drew their spear, as though reinvigorated by duty and purpose. The old Medolian will follow me. Luna strode deeper into the garden, leading Izaiah nearly all the way to the far end, where they approached a short hill. Embedded atop was a rising mushroom cloud of shadow. 200 feet high, its broad, leafless branches stretched in every direction of the sky. The Trivium tree was as old as Trivium itself.
And sadly, long dead. A monolith to a simpler age.
In there, Luna said, motioning at an opening into the hill, between enormous, rotted roots billowing outward. I got it from here. Thank you, Izaiah said, hurrying to a small green door tucked into the gap. He did not bother knocking before entering, but couldn't help calling out, Ileana? Are you home? With its only occupant being an eyeless woman, there were no sources of light in the underground cottage. Igniting the end of his emerald cane to see better, Izaiah began his search, hunching his way through its 5 rooms. Ileana lived minimally. A bed, blankets, some clay pots and bowls scattered about, a few side tables, kitchen supplies, and some shelves of food. Taking up the majority of the space in her enormous pantry were many jars of what she called her medicine. Izaiah didn't know what the materials were, only that they helped the seeress make her memory potions.
Taught herself how to make them, since there was nobody who already knew how.
Without much to go on, Izaiah surmised she'd left home in a hurry, having packed nothing and failing to take her favorite robe. Though none of it helped solve the mystery of why she left her guards behind and ventured out on her own. Just as Izaiah was about fed up, Luna called from the front entryway. Old Medolian. Izaiah hurried to the front den and saw Luna leaning into the open doorway, which was far too small for them to enter. Their long arm was stretched inside, aimed at a glimmer of light near the fireplace. Izaiah found a trinket dangling from a teapot holder, One of Ileana's vials. A memory.
Bingo!
That help? Luna asked.
You big, beautiful behemoth! I could kiss you!
Izaiah said, garnering a confused eyebrow from the Celestial.
Keep watch, while I see what she wanted to tell me.
Luna nodded and exited from the doorway. Finding Ileana's favorite chair, the one she used to collect the visions in the first place, Izaiah set aside his cane and sank into the cushions.
Oh, that's nice.
Once ready, he opened the vial and took a sip. Setting it aside, he closed his eyes, waiting for the ride to come. It would be all-encompassing, taking him away from reality for however long Ileana had designed the experience to last.
First time I tried one, it wasn't pretty. No, sir.
His physical presence was the first to go, as his consciousness separated itself and floated over the den, then the garden and Luna, then up over all of Trivium, a pint-sized planet amid a deep maroon cosmos. Then everything went black, before a cloud of blue faded into Izaiah's mind's eye, soon filled with white clouds, beautiful, like the kind found only on Earth. He was soon soaring through them.
This is a strange memory potion. I can already tell something was off with Ileana when she brewed it.
Hello, Izaiah. A weathered voice as soothing and welcome as a babbling brook said. I hope Luna and Amrath didn't scare you. I know you think they don't like you, but they do. Almost as much as me. Ileana laughed, then dropped her tone to maternal concern. If you're seeing this memory potion, it's because you're having a harder time catching the Archfiend than you thought you would, and came back to me a lot sooner than you meant to. It also means I was wrong. This has become much more than a diplomatic issue, and everything will not turn out fine. My visions have been haunting lately. Something is coming. Its form just hasn't set yet. I had to leave Yil to protect Unearth. Though, if I'm honest, I'm not sure anything can at this point. It happens. No matter which way I look, it comes. Her tone alarmed Izaiah, who knew Ileana as a spirit who had loved flowers since she was young, whose ages spent dealing with her unique abilities had matured her quickly, and who had never lost her carefree nature despite it. She was a woman always overcoming the odds, even while constantly on the run from anyone who would seek to exploit her and her gifts. To hear the Cirrus speak now of doom was something Izaiah had never experienced.
And I could never have guessed would feel so awful.
Ileana continued. One thing you taught me was never to stop fighting. So I'm leaving you this message in the hopes that you may be able to turn the coming tide. Though I have to warn you, every moment you're about to experience will hurt. The memory then transformed into a full sensory experience. Izaiah was presented with images of Unearth, its cities, and his colleagues. Memories of meetings with Ileana sped by, and even flashes of Joseph, seen through the eyes of the people he'd murdered with his own hands. I'm sorry to say I still don't know the identity of the demon inhabiting the boy. It remains nameless, Ileana said with heavy disappointment. As you know from your last visit, because Mason's parents and several of his doctors are deceased, I have access to their memories. and so learned a great deal about him. The picture was always incomplete, however, as we knew nothing of the boy's time spent united with the demon, as Joseph, until now. 6 months ago, I stumbled upon a stream of Eve entering on earth during a meditation. It was cold and rotten, so full of malice I thought it was a blend of souls coming in from a battlefield. I investigated. Now sorry I did.
The fog in Izaiah's mind cleared, and an image faded into view. A young man's face, one he had seen before. It was Mason, aged 15, staring into a mirror. Izaiah was seeing the world through the boy's eyes, knowing immediately what doing so meant.
Yes,
Ileana started.
the boy possessed, Mason, is dead. His memories joined the Eve, which means only one personality remains in the body. The nameless demon.
By the Eve, Fabian was right. A marionette doll. This could have been the big break they were looking for, finally revealing the demon's plans. Izaiah wished he could ask Ileana questions, but that wasn't how memory visions worked. The story of Mason would continue, whether Izaiah kept up or not. He was sent through years of the boy's life in the blink of an eye, seeing a lonely childhood, feeling Mason's seclusion, and also the shamble of chemistry within his mind, growing twisted as it aged, unchecked. It was a wholly different experience from viewing the boy's past through the eyes of his parents, who'd died years earlier. Izaiah had no clue humanity and their offspring could be so foreign to one another. The memories of Mason, now aged somewhere near 17, were awash in frustration, anger, and a constant feeling of claustrophobia at school. Images flashed by of the boy glaring at the psychiatrists he was shuffled through over the years, feeling the urge to rip every one of their throats out, just to keep them from saying another word. Every animal he saw was a weak potential victim. The feelings were overwhelming. Mason had been born without a filter deep in his psyche, letting anything pure flow out, in whatever form it wished. Time passed as Mason confined himself to his parents' backyard shed, secretly assembling an armory, inspired by the mass shooters of the age, making his own plans to sow chaos and murder. God help us. These kids. Ileana, wait! Give me a minute, huh? Izaiah wanted it to stop, but the images shifted to a black, stormy evening, where Mason was waiting anxiously in the shed, staring at a calendar, 2 days from his intended attack. Local police, after receiving a tip from his younger sister, surrounded the shed and raided it. Mason fought to the last, shooting 7 police officers dead before being brought down, only to awaken from a coma in a mental hospital 6 months later. This is almost too much to take.
He spent 9 additional months in the hospital, part of a life sentence. By then, his soul was pure wrath. There was nothing anyone could do. It was only a matter of time,
Ileana said. Every moment of every day, Mason was strapped to the bed, fighting his restraints. Izaiah could feel how they burned him in his mind like cinders. His nights were spent awake, staring at the ceiling, muttering to himself.
Every day and every night,
Ileana began,
he asked the heavens to give him the strength to break free, smite his enemies, and fulfill his quest for greatness. Then, one night, it came. Izaiah had now been transported to Mason's padded room. The air was as cold as ice, but he was not shivering. What sounded like a wild animal searching for prey floated through the halls outside his door. Mason watched as a blood-red light appeared under it, growing. A presence neared, and Izaiah felt Mason's fear in that moment, when the straps forcing him to the bed gave way. Mason stood and drew near the padded door, even as someone, or something, began pounding at it from the other side, denting its steel. The door shook and quaked. Bolts fell from its corners, and finally it collapsed inward, leaving a smoke-filled gap. Mason peered inside, where two eyes opened in the blackness, shining like red fire. Scorching shadow engulfed him, and he fell.
The night the demon took him. Poor stupid kid.
The next memories were physically painful and unclear, filled with chaos. Dozens of voices were screaming. Glass was breaking. Izaiah could feel blood dripping from Mason's hands as he walked the halls. "They killed 14 people the night Joseph was born," Ileana said with a weak sadness in her voice. "Mason would never rise to the surface or be in control again. The demon immediately set to work, roaming the world, spreading wrath, turning flimsy minds to the Wraithian cause, hoping that by recreating the ancient cult, they would find Gehenna and his prize for him." The memories continued, but Mason was now in the back seat, watching as someone else drove his body. Izaiah could feel the boy's apprehension grow over the course of months, then years, traversing continents, trading whatever they possessed for passage. When they could not afford a trip, violence was used. Mason quickly got used to having power over others, and his thirst for it grew. So much so, he did not notice when the demons stopped feeding them, letting their bodies subsist only on wrath. Eventually, Joseph was forced to put on a mask in order to continue making deals with humans, who were rather squeamish around decomposing flesh. "Mason allowed it all," Ileana started in Izaiah's mind. "Believing he and the demon were searching for the stones in order to overthrow Lucifer of Vale. Power was his obsession, and he thought they would find it alone. But it turns out the nameless archfiend had long ago made a promise to a wholly different partner. Again, I'm sorry to do this, Izaiah." There was a flash in the memory vision, that of a shift. Standing in front of Izaiah, seen through Joseph's mask, was a face he was not prepared to see. Luna and Amrath had been telling the truth about a Medolian woman, as had his gut. The youngest sentry, Chloe, clad in an admiral's jacket, marched up to Joseph and took his hand as Izaiah lived the memory.
"No, not Chloe. We can't lose her."
If not for being on a spiritual drug trip, Izaiah would have punched something. "She was the first Medolian to catch the demon, long before it ever bonded with a human body," Ileana explained. "But rather than arrest him, for reasons I don't know, she let the archfiend go and instead joined his cause. Chloe was seduced into searching the earth for decades, doing the demon's work. When Joseph arrived on earth, they continued the demon's ultimate quest, which is not a repeat of Inferius at all. The throne of Eros is merely a smokescreen, one even the boy didn't know about. The demon and the young Medolian together made a pact many years before, one far more horrid than war." Time passed in the vision. Chloe and Joseph worked together to spread wrath and keep the Medolians busy and unfocused as the Raytheon tribe was reborn on Earth. Many secluded nights together were ended with the phrase, "Till none suffer," whispered in one another's ears. It resounded through Mason's mind as his paranoia grew over the duo, continuing to hide their love from him, finding they often spoke in riddles to keep him off their trail. "The demon played everyone. He continues to," Ileana added. "Though Medolians have mastery over Malos, anyone who is balanced, devout, and willing to practice can learn the skills of the guardians of Eve. If one truly believes they're pure and working for the betterment of all, it is possible. Turns out, the Nameless is such a creature." Izaiah saw Chloe teach Joseph to create and control Malos, and to bend his wrath signature in the boy's body, rendering him invisible.
Where did she even learn that? Not from Mara or me.
"The stones are close to being found,"
Joseph said to Chloe one frigid afternoon in the desert.
"We can feel it."
Chloe agreed. "When we find the Temple of the Molochs, will you be ready for what comes next?"
"We always have been,"
Joseph answered, holding her in his arms. Chloe lifted his mask and kissed his green, dying lips. "I'm not ready to lose us."
"The end of everything is also the end of pain. Remember, until none suffer,"
Joseph said, pulling the mask back down.
"Until none suffer,"
Chloe repeated.
"That was the day the boy learned the demon and Medolian's true plans,"
Ileana said.
"It may have been by that point the demon simply didn't care if Mason knew the truth, feeling confident the body would remain theirs. The very next day, when Mason made a final, tired attempt to wrestle control of his body, the demon snuffed him out for good."
The memories of Mason ceased and did not return. For a moment, Izaiah's consciousness was in blackness. Then Ileana spoke.
"The demon believes with all its essence the stones are real, convinced they have more power in them than any of us in the kingdoms of unearth could ever fathom. I tell you this because I, too, believe it."
Excuse me?
Izaiah wasn't sure if he'd heard her right. Ileana's words were now stumbling, broken by tears.
"I've seen it so many times, I can't bear to look again."
Joseph appeared as a fog before Izaiah, immense and without true shape. 3 objects were below him, glowing white-hot, with a fire surrounding them, a red so deep it drew near blackness. Like a dream he couldn't explain, Izaiah knew the world was hurting by what he saw. The 3 glowing objects were in Eve so concentrated, so powerful, it was beyond comprehension. Joseph's laughter permeated the noise, which Izaiah knew in his heart to be the end of the world.
"Mankind was filling these stones with wrath for hundreds of millennia,"
Ileana said.
"The immense power within them has grown stale. It's no longer wrath. It's something else. The Nameless calls it an abyss, free from light or creation. Each stone holds the power of an unlimited army. When the Archfiend taps into that power, the abyss within them will shatter every molecular bond it touches. the world will turn to dust. Its matter will be unable to collapse and reform, and the cloud of nothing will spread until it reaches all corners of creation, no matter how long it takes. I know this because I've seen it,
Ileana said, ending her tears with a hard sniff. Izaiah then witnessed what had broken her, the rending of the world. He saw the earth sink into a pit of black, where nothing existed.
And so, you see, my old friend, you were right, and I was wrong. Every direction we take, the earth will be split. It is inevitable,
Ileana said.
I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner.
As Izaiah's consciousness soared back into reality and settled over Trivium, his feelings came back, and he had to fight off a panic at the Armageddon he'd just witnessed.
What am I going to do? Oh, what can any of us do?
Do not try to find me,
Ileana said lastly.
I'll come to you if the danger has passed, which may never be. Keep your wits and stay wise, old friend, if you are able, and good luck.
She finished her words with her usual sweet and salty disposition that Izaiah was so fond of, as though a final gift before sending him into a war she knew he couldn't win. Returned to reality, lying in the Sirius's chair like a lumpy pile of misshapen bricks, he fought to get his breath. The weight of an elephant was on his chest.
The Gehenna stones. Real and under my nose this whole time. If only I'd... No, don't do that. No time for pity.
Izaiah rose like a shot, grabbed his cane, and exited the cottage. Luna turned as he climbed out of the doorway between roots. Did the Madolian learn what it wished?
He did, and he did not,
Izaiah answered, hurrying down the cracked stone path back to the garden entrance. Where will the Madolian go now? Luna called after him. Izaiah pressed himself forward, ignoring the screaming pain in his knees.
To get help!